You wake up tomorrow morning, the alarm goes off, you silence it, maybe you reach for your phone, maybe you do not, and in those first few seconds before your feet even touch the floor, one organ inside you has already been working all night without a single break, your liver. It has been filtering, storing, converting, and cleaning for the last 7 or 8 hours while you were completely unconscious, and right now, in this exact moment, it is running low on fuel and waiting for a signal from you. The question is simple, but almost nobody actually knows the answer. What is the very first thing your liver needs from you each morning? Not later, not after coffee, but first. Once you understand what is happening inside that organ, before you even get out of bed, you will never think about your morning the same way again. Before we go further, if this kind of biology genuinely interests you, take a second and subscribe to Smart Psychology, because we go deep into exactly this kind of thing, the real mechanisms behind everyday habits, not the surface-level advice you already know. Let me start with what your liver has actually been doing while you were asleep, because most people picture the liver as some background organ that just sits there quietly, and that picture is completely wrong. Your liver is one of the most metabolically active organs in your entire body, and overnight it takes on a job that almost nothing else in you can do. It keeps your blood sugar stable while you are not eating. Think about that for a second. You go 7, 8, sometimes 9 hours without a single calorie coming in, and yet your brain, which runs almost entirely on glucose, keeps functioning the whole time, dreaming, regulating your breathing, keeping your heart beating in rhythm. That does not happen by accident. It happens because your liver is releasing stored glucose from something called glycogen, a storage form of sugar that your liver built up during the day from the food you ate, and it is releasing that glucose in a slow, controlled drip all night long so your blood sugar never crashes. By the time your alarm goes off, your liver has been running that drip for hours, and its glycogen reserves are meaningfully depleted, not empty but low, especially if you had a light dinner, or drank alcohol the night before, or exercised hard the previous day. Researchers who study overnight metabolism have measured this directly. Liver glycogen can drop by a significant percentage over a normal night's sleep. And once those reserves start running thin, your liver has to shift strategy. It begins relying more heavily on a backup process called gluconeogenesis, where it manufactures new glucose from amino acids and other non-sugar sources, which is a more demanding, more resource-intensive process for the organ. So when you wake up, your liver is not resting, it is coming off a long overnight shift, and it is genuinely low on its preferred fuel. At the exact same time, your liver is also handling detoxification duties that ramp up specifically during sleep. Your liver processes everything that entered your bloodstream the day before. Byproducts of digestion, metabolic waste, hormones that need to be broken down and cleared, and a portion of that clearance work is concentrated in the early morning hours, tied to your circadian rhythm. Your liver actually runs on its own internal clock, separate from but connected to the master clock in your brain. And enzyme activity for detoxification pathways in the liver has been shown to peak around the transition from night to morning. So right as you are waking up, your liver is simultaneously low on glycogen and working through a peak period of detox activity, which means it needs support, and what you give it in the next 30 minutes genuinely matters. Now here is where cortisol comes back into the picture, because your liver and your cortisol response are deeply connected in a way most people never consider. In the 30 to 45 minutes after you wake up, your cortisol rises sharply. This is called the cortisol awakening response, and it is one of the most consistent hormonal patterns in the human body, happening in the vast majority of healthy adults every single morning, regardless of mood or sleep quality. Cortisol signals your liver directly. It tells your liver to increase glucose production, to mobilize energy, to prepare your body for the demands of the day ahead. This is a normal, healthy, necessary process. Your liver is designed to respond to this signal. But if you add a strong external stimulus on top of that natural cortisol spike, something like caffeine on a completely empty stomach, you are asking your liver to process an additional demanding compound while it is already stretched thin on glycogen and already running elevated detox and glucose production duties from the cortisol spike itself. Caffeine is not processed by your stomach the way food is. It is absorbed quickly and sent almost directly to your liver, where it is metabolized primarily by a liver enzyme system called cytochrome P450, specifically a version of that enzyme called CP1A2. Your liver is responsible for breaking down more than 90% of the caffeine you consume, and when you drink coffee first thing in the morning, before eating anything, you are handing your liver a compound to metabolize at the exact moment it is already managing a natural cortisol surge and running low on its own glucose reserves. This does not mean coffee is dangerous. Your liver is fully capable of processing caffeine, but the timing changes how much additional strain that process creates, and giving your liver something else first can meaningfully change how that whole sequence unfolds. So let us talk about what your liver actually needs first. And the answer starts with something almost embarrassingly simple: water. Your liver is one of the most water-dependent organs in your body. Its cells require adequate hydration to carry out nearly every one of the hundreds of chemical reactions it performs, from processing nutrients to filtering toxins to producing bile. After 7 or 8 hours without a single sip of fluid, your body is in a mild state of overnight dehydration, and your liver, along with your kidneys, is the organ most sensitive to that fluid deficit, because so much of its function depends on adequate blood volume and proper enzymatic activity, both of which require sufficient water. When you drink a glass of water first thing in the morning, ideally warm or room temperature rather than ice cold, you are restoring blood volume, supporting the liver's detox pathways at the exact moment they are running at peak activity, and helping your liver produce bile more efficiently, which matters enormously for what comes next in your digestive process. Bile is worth pausing on for a moment, because most people have no real understanding of what it does or why the liver spends so much energy producing it. Your liver produces roughly 1 liter of bile every single day, and that bile is stored and concentrated in your gallbladder until it is needed to break down fats during digestion. But bile does something else that gets almost no attention. It is one of your body's primary pathways for eliminating certain toxins and waste products, including excess cholesterol and processed hormones. Your liver packages these waste compounds into bile, which then travels into your intestines and eventually leaves your body. If you are dehydrated, bile becomes thicker and more concentrated, moving less efficiently, and over time that sluggishness has been associated with a higher risk of gallstone formation and reduced digestive efficiency. Something as simple as a glass of water in the morning directly supports this entire bile production and elimination pathway at the moment your liver needs it most. This is a good moment to pause and mention something practical. If you want a simple way to track habits like this, morning water, meal timing, sleep patterns, and actually see the pattern build over weeks instead of guessing, that is exactly the kind of tool we build guides around over on Smart Psychology. So it is worth a look if consistency has been hard for you. Now let us move past water and into what you actually eat, because your liver has very specific preferences in the morning, shaped by exactly what it has been doing all night. The first thing your liver benefits from is a moderate amount of easily accessible carbohydrate, not a sugar spike, but something that helps replenish those depleted glycogen stores without forcing a dramatic insulin response. Whole oats are a good example here. They release glucose gradually, giving your liver a steady, manageable supply to rebuild its glycogen reserves rather than a sudden flood that has to be processed and stored all at once. Alongside that, your liver benefits enormously from adequate protein in the morning, specifically because certain amino acids are directly used by the liver to support one of its most important functions, producing glutathione, which is widely considered the single most important antioxidant your liver uses to neutralize toxins and protect its own cells from damage. Glutathione production depends heavily on 3 amino acids, cysteine, glutamine, and glycine, all of which are found in high-quality protein sources like eggs. And eggs bring an additional benefit here because they are one of the richest common food sources of choline, a nutrient your liver depends on to properly transport fat out of liver cells. Choline deficiency has been directly linked in research to fat accumulating inside the liver, and the majority of people, according to National Nutrition Survey data, do not consume nearly enough choline in their regular diet, which is a genuinely underappreciated gap, given how directly it connects to something as common as fatty liver, a condition that has quietly become one of the most widespread liver issues in the country, affecting a large share of adults who often have no symptoms at all, until the condition is fairly advanced. Cruciferous vegetables deserve real attention here too, even though eating broccoli or cauliflower first thing in the morning sounds unusual to most people. These vegetables contain compounds called glucosinolates, which your body converts into substances that directly support what researchers call phase 2 liver detoxification, the stage where your liver takes broken down toxins and packages them for safe elimination. You do not need a large serving. Even a modest amount consumed regularly has been associated in research with meaningfully increased activity of the liver's own detoxification enzymes. If mornings are not realistic for a vegetable serving, getting cruciferous vegetables in consistently at any point in the day still supports this same pathway. The point is total intake over time, not a rigid morning requirement. There is also a strong case for fermented foods and their impact on liver health, specifically through the gut-liver connection, which is a real, well-documented physiological pathway, not just a wellness buzzword. Your gut and your liver are connected by a direct blood vessel system called the portal vein, which carries blood and everything absorbed from your gut straight to your liver before it goes anywhere else in your body. This means the health of your gut microbiome has a direct, immediate impact on what your liver is exposed to every single day. An imbalanced gut microbiome can increase the release of certain bacterial byproducts that travel straight to the liver through that portal vein and contribute to low-grade inflammation there over time. Supporting a healthy, diverse gut microbiome through fermented foods like plain yogurt, kefir, or a modest serving of sauerkraut has been shown in research to reduce circulating inflammatory markers, and because of that direct portal vein connection, a healthier gut translates fairly directly into less inflammatory burden on your liver. One more nutrient worth naming directly is vitamin C, which plays a supporting role in liver detoxification that most people never connect back to the liver at all. Vitamin C is involved in supporting the same glutathione pathway mentioned earlier, essentially helping recycle glutathione so your liver can reuse it, rather than needing to constantly manufacture it from scratch. And a piece of fruit like berries or citrus, alongside your morning protein and fiber, gives your liver a small but meaningful boost to that recycling process. None of this needs to be complicated or expensive. A bowl of oats, 2 eggs, a handful of berries, and a glass of water covers nearly every mechanism described so far, and that combination costs a fraction of what most people spend on their coffee order alone. Let me also address alcohol and coffee together, because people often ask about both in the same breath when they think about liver health, and the honest answer is more nuanced than most content online admits. Coffee, consumed later in the morning, rather than on a completely empty, cortisol-spiked stomach, has actually been associated in a substantial body of research with a lower risk of liver fibrosis and reduced levels of liver enzymes that typically indicate liver stress, likely due to compounds in coffee beyond just caffeine, including certain antioxidants that appear to have a protective effect on liver tissue. So this is not an argument against coffee, it is an argument about timing. Giving your liver water and food first changes the entire context in which caffeine arrives. Alcohol is a separate conversation entirely, and the science there is far less forgiving. Even moderate regular alcohol intake has a measurable, well-documented impact on liver fat accumulation and inflammation over time, and there is no version of a morning routine that offsets nighttime alcohol intake. The two operate on completely different scales. There is another piece of this that almost never gets mentioned, and it is the connection between your sleep quality the night before and how well your liver is able to handle the next morning at all. Your liver does not just run on its own internal clock, it is also heavily influenced by the quality and consistency of your sleep, because deep sleep stages are when a large portion of your body's cellular repair processes, including some liver repair mechanisms, are most active. Research on shift workers and people with irregular sleep schedules has consistently shown higher markers of liver stress and altered liver enzyme patterns compared to people with regular, consistent sleep timing, independent of diet. This matters because it means the liver-supportive morning we just walked through works best as part of a larger rhythm, going to bed at a reasonably consistent time, allowing enough hours for full sleep cycles, rather than treating the morning routine as an isolated fix that can compensate for chronically poor sleep. Your liver, in a very real sense, is listening to your entire 24-hour pattern, not just the first 10 minutes after your alarm goes off. It is also worth understanding just how quickly your liver responds when you give it consistent support, because this is the part that tends to motivate people the most once they hear it. Liver enzyme markers that indicate stress or mild inflammation, things clinicians commonly check for, have been shown in research to improve within a matter of weeks when someone adopts consistent hydration, regular meal timing, and reduced intake of ultra-processed food and alcohol. This is not a slow, years-long process to see any signal of change. Measurable shifts in liver-related blood markers have been documented in as little as several weeks of consistent behavior change in people who started from a baseline of poor habits. Your liver is not holding a grudge against you for years of rushed mornings and skipped water. It responds to what you give it now, consistently, starting essentially immediately. If you want a simple way to test all of this yourself, rather than just taking it on faith, try a genuinely small experiment for the next 3 mornings. Each of those 3 mornings, drink a full glass of water within the first 5 minutes of waking, wait at least 30 minutes before any coffee or caffeine, and eat a real meal containing protein and some form of fiber within 2 hours of getting up. Pay attention, honestly, to your energy around the mid-morning slump that most people hit around 10 or 11, to how hungry or how stable you feel before lunch, and to how your digestion feels through the rest of the day. Most people who try this notice a difference within that same 3-day window, not because anything mystical happened, but because you removed the specific stacked stress you were placing on your liver every single morning without realizing it, and gave the organ exactly what it was already asking for. Before we close this out, if any of this has made you think differently about your own mornings, the most useful thing you can do right now is comment which part of your current routine surprised you the most. Because smart psychology genuinely reads through those, and it shapes what we cover next, so your input actually changes future videos. It is not just a formality. Let me bring this all together into one coherent picture of what a liver-supportive morning actually looks like. You wake up, and before anything else, you drink a full glass of water, ideally warm or at room temperature, which restores hydration at the exact moment your liver is running through a peak period of overnight detox activity and needs adequate fluid to keep bile flowing properly. You give your body a stretch of time, ideally 30 minutes or more, before introducing caffeine, allowing your natural cortisol awakening response to do its job without stacking an additional metabolic demand on top of it. When you do eat, within roughly the first 1 to 2 hours of waking, your meal includes a moderate source of slow-releasing carbohydrate like oats to help rebuild depleted glycogen, a solid source of protein like eggs to supply the amino acids your liver needs for glutathione production, and to deliver choline for proper fat transport, and ideally some small inclusion of either a cruciferous vegetable or a fermented food to support the detoxification and gut-liver pathways working in the background. None of this requires unusual or expensive ingredients. And none of it requires more than a few extra minutes. What it requires is understanding why the sequence matters. Because once you understand the mechanism, the habit becomes automatic rather than something you have to force yourself to remember. Here is what I find genuinely remarkable about all of this. Your liver is one of the only organs in your entire body capable of regenerating itself. It can restore a significant portion of its own tissue, even after substantial damage, provided it is given the support it needs and the harmful inputs are reduced. That regenerative capacity means the choices you make tomorrow morning, and the morning after that, are not just neutral, they are actively shaping how well this organ performs for you over the coming decades, quietly filtering everything that enters your bloodstream, producing the proteins that keep your blood clotting properly, storing the vitamins your body draws on when it needs them, and converting the food you eat into usable energy every single day without you ever consciously thinking about it. Most people go their entire lives without giving their liver a single deliberate thought, and yet it is working for them every hour of every day, asking for remarkably little in return: water, reasonable timing, and a handful of specific nutrients delivered consistently. So tomorrow morning, before the phone, before the scroll, before the coffee, remember that there is an organ inside you that spent the entire night keeping your blood sugar stable and clearing out the waste from everything you exposed it to the day before, and it is sitting there right now waiting for the simplest possible signal that you are ready to support it back. Give it water first, Give it real food within a couple of hours, and give caffeine a little room to breathe before it shows up. None of these steps demand willpower. In the way most health advice does, there is no restriction, no counting, no complicated tracking, just a slightly different order to a morning you were already going to have anyway. And that small shift in order is exactly what your liver has been waiting on this whole time. If this changed how you think about your mornings, subscribe to Smart Psychology for more of this kind of deep mechanism first breakdown, and we will see you in the next one.